first things first, I'll just want to say thanks to you guys for taking some time today, and maybe more importantly, just for being a part of this project. It's been sort of on the go for maybe about 5 years, I guess now. Some of you are kind of new to it, and some are. I think Sean might be the most has been around the longest. And I just really today, I just wanted to kind of finally get around to kind of saying hello to people kind of face to face, and as kind of a bit of an experiment to see if we can maybe do this sort of thing more often, maybe with more, maybe with less, maybe one-on-one, just so that we can kind of maybe be a little more of a real community, not just sort of in a virtual way, just to see if there's anything we could all talk about or we have questions. So maybe the first step would be maybe just I can kind of go around the table and get each of you to say a little bit about who you are and what you primarily do and how long you've been doing it, and then I'll have a question or two. How's that? Maud, would you like to go first?
Sure, I will go first. Hi everyone, I'm Maud, based in Brooklyn, New York, originally from England, from Manchester. What do I primarily do? It's a good question. I don't really know. I think I'm trying to work that out. I'm in this like weird, well, I'm not in it. I've decided to be in this weird place where I don't want to be doing just one thing, and I think that's proving to be very difficult for me. But I don't really know how to do it any other way. I mostly do commercial video work, so I'm a DP primarily. But then photo has always been kind of like a hobby for me. The last 5 years or so, it's become a part of my business. So I focus on capturing people. So I do sometimes proposals, sometimes engagements, and now more recently focused on headshots. So I think it's probably split between headshots and doing DP work, and small events and engagement and wedding stuff comes when it comes. But yeah, definitely been putting more of a focus on headshots recently. So it's split between being a DP and headshots.
One of the things that I've been kind of recognizing with the work that you're doing with headshots, and also I know because of our conversation, is authenticity super important to you. You don't want it to feel and look too commercial. You want to, even though it might be a headshot to help promote somebody to do whatever they're doing, you want it to be who they really are, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah. I think it ties into my struggle of like choosing what to do, and I think it's because the photography is less motivated about the photo and more motivated about the person. I've always loved the connection that you build with people in whatever scenario. So I'm trying to like use that same love of connecting with people in all the different areas. And headshots, it comes out the most, I think. I was thinking about this morning before thinking about like, how to focus on this session, and yeah, it's a weird thing. It's a bit like therapy in a way. You kind of get to sit down with someone for, an hour to 3 hours. You get to hear a lot about their life, and then you never see them again.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
That's a weird thing. Not many people get to do. You don't really get to meet. I mean, unless you're doing a lot of dating, but you don't really get to sit down with someone for an hour or 3 hours. Really get to hear about everything. It depends how detailed, like how intimate you get with your clients. But I usually get to ask them like the weird questions, and I don't know, their childhood traumas and all the weird stuff that gets to bring out whatever you want to bring out in a session. And then you say bye and you never see them again. And I think that's what I really love about it. I think that's something really, really beautiful about getting to know someone really well for a very short period of time and then say bye-bye. I think that comes out in all areas. So yeah.
That's super cool. Sean, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Well, I've been living in Stockholm since 2008. I moved over from West Kensington in November. I used to work at Thomson Reuters there for a few years. I started off photography in London, so maybe 2006, 2005, 2006 with my Fuji FinePix S5 700. It's like a 7 megapixel camera. My mobile phone's just ridiculous now. But anyway, so I started doing street photography. Moved over here, as I said, in 2008. I did a few jobs in graphics over here, but they don't really like to move around in jobs in Stockholm. They keep jobs for like 15, 20 years. They're in it for life. So one company I was working at, they wanted to have some corporate headshots, and there was me like, I'm a photographer. I got my Nikon D3000. I'm good. So no, no studio lights whatsoever. It was quite horrific, but I enjoyed I enjoyed it. It was a eye opening to, rather than just walk around streets of London with your headphones on, being very insular and not talk to anyone, to actually be able to talk to people and get to know people. As Maud was saying, you become a bit of a therapist for a short period of time, and you also kind of it's a bit voyeuristic to a certain degree, where you are actually sort of trying to get inside the actor's head, which I mostly shoot nowadays as actors. So trying to make a connection to them in a period of 2 to 3 hours that actually means something, to actually make a meaningful connection with the person they're looking at, which in their case is going to be casting directors. It can be quite tricky, but it's also very rewarding when they actually do get work from the photographs that I take. So, but now it's coming to wedding season at the moment. So I've got 3 weddings booked this year. I swore to myself that I would never do weddings because it's a very stressful
Right.
practice. But when people contact me for weddings, I say, listen, I'm not the white wedding photographer. I'm more of a documentary style photographer, shooting over people's shoulders, capturing the moments that don't necessarily get caught by traditional wedding photographers. So that style seems to be liked by people. But now it's getting to the point now where it is getting more to do with corporate head shoots, with the dentistry, finance. But my main level portrait photography is working with actors, because they're more willing to be open to suggestions and expressions, how I want them to come across. So
Yeah, and I guess the work that you do for actors, they're really grateful to you. You have a very specific style, right?
yeah,
You're not bending your style to accommodate them. You're still doing, the portraiture that you like doing, in your style,
yeah,
from when you and I first met, it has stayed pretty true. You know,
yeah,
uh, Typically it feels like one light, a little bit heavier in the
yeah,
exposure,
very
um,
much so.
definitely an intimate connection,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
and so that those are fun. But to do the corporate gigs where you get to shoot, a dozen or so dentists, that's when you can
yeah.
actually put a little bit of, money behind you as well, right? Which is
Exactly. I mean, those type of jobs, they are very much. It does pay the bills. Obviously the corporate shoots, they have more money to spend on that. But as far as the actors' headshots go, a lot of them are very young actors. They have 2 or 3 jobs. They are students.
Mm,
So what they do, what they spend on it is, they are sort of quite restricted. So
yeah.
unlike most photographers, especially in Stockholm, for me, it's not necessarily a case of, well, it's going to be this price and you get 3 photographs and you have to pay for those separate. For me,
Mm,
my Lighten, as you said, it's consistent. So I edit one photograph, copy the settings and paste it on. And if there's a couple that needs to be edited separately, then so be it. But I give all the actors all of the photographs that are usable for
mm,
me.
mhm.
And the way I see it is, the more they post, the more they get seen, and the more exposure they get, and the more exposure I get.
Mm.
As a photographer, it is very much word of mouth, and people seeing the stuff that I produce, and the fact that they are getting work in Hollywood from them. So it's a
Cool.
win situation for me. So
Yeah. That's terrific. The next photographer I'm gonna ask to say hello is Mike. Mike is out of Montreal, and Mike is, I guess, newer to this than some of you. And he asked me, should he be a part of this? And I told him absolutely, just because we're all at different levels. We've all been doing this for different amounts of time. The consistent element that I'm drawn to with the photographers that I've asked to be a part of Headshots Matter are people that are empathetic, that care about the person that they're shooting more than even themselves. Like what we get to do is a great opportunity and a responsibility at times to connect, and so I like Mike's work from that standpoint. And my initial conversation with Mike was all about that. So maybe Mike, you could tell us a little bit about who you are and how long you've been doing this for.
Right. Hey, so my name is Mike. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I'm a photographer for, let's say, the last 3 years professionally. I started just doing anything I could, and I shot objects. I shot people, weddings, everything. But it was really because the last 16 years of my life, I wanted to be an artist, to do something. I went to art school 16 years ago, but it didn't work because I didn't know what school meant exactly, well. And the last 3 years, my wife said to me, well, every time we watch a movie about the framing, the colors, the scenes, and all of that, just take a camera, do a wedding, and see what it does. COVID happened, so I didn't do the wedding. But I knew this 99-year-old lady who had cancer. And I talked to the family and I told them, well, I'll do a shoot for free. So I did the shoot. The pictures were pretty much okay. And they gave me money. I didn't ask for it. So it served them well, unfortunately, because she died. But still, the purpose was there. I'm a nurse by trade, so I connect with people. I do interview the person while I'm shooting, asking some weird questions also to have some reactions, but also some true questions, because there's an aspect of philosophy and psychology that you do when you're shooting someone. And to go to the depth of the person, you need some questions to really make a connection. So the last 3 years have been pretty good. Most of the things I've been asked to do was headshots, so I went at it. It's really the story. And I had the much fun of my life for the last 3 years. It's really something I really like and enjoy to do.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I think that one of my observations about what all of us get to do is we have there's a certain creative mindset. There's the keenness to connect with people, and the technique, the talent or technique, that's just practice. We get to use the boxes, these cameras, these lights, and scenes, but that can be learned. What is harder to learn is the empathy, the passion to connect with people. It's sort of that nice blend. And so you're a nurse by trade, a creative person by heart, and you're sort of blending those kind of things into being able to do portraits. I think it's really cool, Mike. So thanks. And then Tom, we have Tom Trevitt from London. Tell us a little bit about you, Tom.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm actually really super new to taking photographs of people's faces. I'm not new to photography. I did an art foundation in photography 20 years ago, and I didn't pursue it because I got into art. I went to university for art, and I did my master's in curating, and then I did my PhD in art theory and politics. And all through that time, I wasn't taking photographs. I was, using what we all use, right? A mobile phone. But I guess it was kind of somewhere in the background. So when I was doing my PhD, I was DJing on the side as a side hustle. And obviously, like all of us, something happened about 3 years ago. Some big world event happened 3 years ago. And that was kind of life-changing for lots of people, including me. And the way that it changed my life is because I was, stuck. I had finished the PhD. All my teaching had been front-loaded to the beginning of the academic year. So come March 2020, I didn't really have anything to do. And the DJing was coming to an end, so I had no source of income. So I figured, what can I do? And it was picking up the camera and going out and taking photographs. I started, I think, like probably a lot of people do, just walking around the streets. I think, Sean, you mentioned this, walking around the streets and just taking photographs. And 2020 was like a very big year for lots of things. So I was documenting all of the protests and the marches and the really interesting things that were happening that year, which I would have gone to anyway. And yeah, so I think 2020, kind of changed my life in that way. And I spent that year just really kind of relearning how to take photographs. And I opened the business in May 2021, just shooting out of my sitting room in my flat. And then I got a studio in January 2022. And then I moved into this current studio in September last year. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster. It's been very, it's been exciting. It's like, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun trying to figure out how it all works. You know, I never thought I'd start a business, but I am running a business. I'm about to open a new business as well.
One of the things I like about what Tom does is it's hard to keep up to him. Like he's trying out new approaches, new lighting, new environments, different backgrounds, and with all like really wonderful success. And I like Tom's creative hustle. Like it's fun. It's hard for me to keep up to it, but it's cool. Maybe what I'll do very quickly, because I don't want to make this about me. I want to speak about you, but I'm like you guys. I've just been doing it a little longer, and even though I started and I, curate and run Headshots Matter, my day to day is I'm a commercial corporate photographer, and I've been doing it for a really long time. This fall in October, I'll hit 40 years. I started when I was 20. It's all I've ever done. I've never had a job. I've always had my own business. In the 80s, I shot lots of advertising work and a little bit of annual report work. Then I moved to a city called Calgary, which is in the west, still in the west of where I grew up. And I did corporate annual reports, a lot of oil and gas. And it was all CEOs and CFOs and VPs of this and that. In those days, in the 80s and 90s, those are the only people that got headshots. And then I moved in 2000 to Ottawa, where I am now, the capital of Canada. I like people, I like portraits. And so corporate headshots was really fun and a good way for me to get to do what I do. And I still do a lot of that for lawyers, accountants, some government, hospitals, colleges, universities. But then, LinkedIn came on stream, and then everybody needed a headshot. So I started doing that. That was like about 10 or 11 years ago. And it's been fun to be able to take that same attention to detail and offer it to just a person. I don't really shoot actors. It's not really an actor's town. So I do people that are looking for a headshot to help them with their business or their new job or entrepreneurial sort of pursuit. So that's kind of what I do. So I might run Headshots Matter, but I do what you guys do. I connect with people. That's the funnest part about what we all get to do. We get to, like Maud says, you get to learn their story, and it's pretty fun. Anyway, but what I wanted to kind of just talk today a little bit about is to ask each of you, how's business? Is it good, medium, bad? Could it be better? Maybe I'll start with Maud as we did with the intros. How's business for you, Maud?
Well, I'll preface it the same way I prefaced the other one. I'm again to a disadvantage because I don't do one thing, and I think that is to my disadvantage. I think being known as a headshot photographer is an advantage because it inspires confidence in a client. I think if you're a dental photographer, you're more likely to get hired than just a general photographer. It's the reality of, what we do is we try to gain the trust of our potential client, and the client knowing that you do that one thing and that's all you do brings trust, because usually that means you have more experience. So when I tell people, like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a DP, I'm a couple photographer, I'm also a headshot photographer. It just is like, oh, okay, it's something you do as well as other things. So I'm with your help, Dwayne, so thank you. I'm learning to kind of split myself, like I've become a split personality, which is interesting. Just yesterday I was in the morning in New York City, East Village. We were shooting a music video for an Irish artist, and it was a non-union crew, so we were just walking around the city with our equipment. We came to like a little park bench, and we needed to use one of the park benches for the shoot. And there was this mum and her two daughters, they must have been 18, 19, sitting on the bench, and we asked them kindly if they wouldn't mind lending us the bench for 10 minutes while we shot the shot we needed. And it started a conversation, and everyone on the crew, and they were like, oh, we're in NYU studying acting, and we have a show tonight. That's why our mum's in town. And it kind of like became a conversation. And you're like, oh, actually, she needs new headshots. Does any of you do headshots? And Anthony, who was the director, was like, Mod's the guy, speak to Mod. And it was a really sweet, kind of heartwarming experience that everyone just turned to me and was like, he's the guy, like, speak to him. So I think it is important to focus on all three areas. But I think it is a disadvantage. And I think for me, if I probably decided that the headshots was the only thing I would do, it would probably help me a lot more. So at the moment, it is a struggle. Like I'm probably shooting maybe 3 headshots a month, maybe. Three on a good month, maybe 5 or 6. But I think that's mostly my fault. It's mostly because I have so much on my plate and I'm trying to get video jobs and all the other types of jobs that I'm not putting enough time into actually expanding just that part of the business. So I'm probably not a good litmus test. But I think it is a really hard job. I had a potential job at the beginning of the week, and she reached out and was like, oh, I've recently been laid off. I can't really afford the rates at the moment. And I haven't got back to her yet, actually. I'm still trying to work out, what do I do in these situations? Like, do I try and tailor the pricing to the client if they've been laid off recently and be like, oh, I'm so sorry for your situation, I'm happy to give you half off? Or does that kind of bring down my value and say that I'm not valuing my work enough? So that's something I guess maybe some of you can give me some advice on. But I think it is a really hard at the moment, because I think people are looking for new jobs, because a lot of people are struggling to get jobs. But a lot of people that are looking for jobs can't afford the headshot because they don't have the job. So I think it is a difficult market, and it is a struggle. But I don't know if that struggle is mostly because I'm not putting in enough effort, or that's just, so I guess the rest of you can tell me whether it's just me or it's everyone. So yeah.
I'll say one quick thing and then I'll open it up. To the fact that you do this, and this, I would I would encourage you to think that it's actually an advantage. In business, what I've learned over the years, have different baskets with different eggs in them. And then you can, so if you only did headshots and you were only getting 3 to 5 a month, you'd be pretty stressed out, but you've got some other ways of revenue. So that's a good thing. The tricky thing is, how do you present it? How do you even present it to yourself? It's about just saying you are a photographer. And sometimes you do moving pictures, and sometimes you do stills, and sometimes they're headshots. It's about how you present that to others and also to yourself.
With the free stuff that you did, and people are going to see you as an expert in that field. And then they're going to ask you to do other things. That's my experience in business. And because also my brother has a restaurant, as soon as he focuses on one thing that he does, the clients ask for catering for other things, because they think, oh, if you can do that, it's easier for you to do these other things. So it's a bit of a reverse psychology, and it seems like you're a counterfeit when you do it, but it's truer for the clients, because they really want something of a high value. So it's not as if you're shortchanging yourself when you present too much things, but it gives you a better value when you show one thing, and other things.
Sean, you, like the work that you show on social media is really primarily the work you do for actors.
Yeah.
You're getting some other projects that are more commercial.
Yeah.
So does that make sense to you, that what Mike says, like, you really focus on one
It
thing?
does. It does, actually. I mean, when I first started off doing actors' headshots, this was a while ago now. I think my very first headshot, I was charging 400 crowns. It's probably like 30 quid, $25. That thankfully now has gone up, or else I wouldn't have a roof over my head. But it is a case of it is a bit of a dilemma to be stuck in, because obviously I love what I do, interacting with people, with actors, but it's at the point is when you have a sort of feeling about some actors that they are going to go on to bigger and better things, and there has been some, they have like 2 or 3 jobs, they've been laid off from one, or they're just really down in their luck. So it's a case of, when I first started off, I'd be like, okay, well, I don't do it much now, but now it's a case of, well, just keep this to yourself, don't tell anyone else, And if they said, just say that you charge the regular price. So it's, for me, I'm a bit of a soft touch when it comes to that. I can't say no. I'm saying more no now because I've got more projects to do. So it does keep me busy. But at the beginning, it was a case of I would just shoot and practice. It was like Peter Hurley said, even if you're not getting paid for the work, just keep on shooting, because you're only going to improve the skill that you're doing. And I still, to this day, I mean, I shot several actors, and I find myself learning every single time because, say, during the COVID period, I was doing like a lot of YouTube tutorials. I was finding a lot more photographers to follow, keeping my creativeness going. And when you don't have many people to come because there's a lockdown, I can only shoot the dogs so many times before they get sick of it. So yeah, so
and then on cue comes the dog. Very nice, Sean.
Was he there? So yeah, I mean, it's as Mike was saying, it's tricky. It is a tricky thing to do, do I see myself sell myself short because of this? In some aspects I do, but in some aspects I'm getting someone that I can test on. I don't have to do the tried and tested cinematic movie screen portraits that I do. I can experiment like Tom does with his light, and it's mind-blowing. It does. I actually attempted, it was a happy accident. I had sort of the window light over this here. I had the blinds rolled down and the sun was coming through the windows, and that was like cutting across their body and onto the background. I was like, sod it, why not? This is a freebie. It's more of a test or experiment for me on how to do this. And it looked really, really good. So that's what sort of interests me in Tom's work, especially. So for me, it's a case of I'm doing free work occasionally, but it's more for at the end, it's more for my benefit that I'm learning something new rather than on someone else's dime, as it were. So, you have to sort of weigh things up.
Yeah,
basically.
You know what I think is cool, Sean, is that when I look at your work, it doesn't feel transactional. It feels like you're photographing people who you're very dear to, or they're very dear to you, and or you to them, right? And I think that's quite interesting. I think my work mostly looks transactional because it has a little more of a corporate commercial look to it.
Yeah.
And if anything, I need to let go of that a bit at times, I feel, but it is what it is. We'll have our style and approach, but I think it's quite neat what you've got. And I've always admired that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Tom's work, as you said, the lighting is really, really incredible. And actually that brings me to a point. So Tom, did you think that your work changed once you got into the new studio that had a little more available light?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Sure. I think there's always that kind of question of like whether gear matters, and people, when someone says gear matters, they're thinking of the camera, right?
Yeah.
Camera and the lenses. And yes, I'm shooting on what I consider to be the best possible setup I can afford.
Yeah.
I think of gear as much more about the scene that you're part of, the scene that you here I am, I've got rainy London out the corner, out the window. It's like a little office kind of building. I'd love it to be a warehouse, and my work would look very different if I had a warehouse. So I think it has made a big difference to me to be in this studio space and to put curtains up and to have the space completely to myself. To go to the two questions, I think that we didn't actually ever answer Dwayne's initial question, which is like, how's business going?
Yeah. How is it? How is it going for you, Tom?
So March has been insanely good. I don't know whether that is like a thing that happens regularly. Like I noticed last year, I don't have enough like data to back this up, but last year March was a good month. this year it was a really, really good month. Didn't stop me spending all that money buying new things. But now May is completely empty. Like, I'm looking at my diary and I'm just like, I've got one shoot booked in for next month, and I had 12 shoots booked in for March. And if I work out, so what's my average like turnover? What do I make per shoot? My average is about £850 to £1,000 per shoot. So you can imagine that I don't need to do a lot of shoots, but I need to have some shoots. And so I don't really know. The answer to the question is, how's business? I don't really know. Like, it's quite difficult to have a grasp of all of this, to try and get a sense of, like, what do people want? How the question that Mod raised at the very beginning about, should you just focus on one thing? I mean, sure, yeah, fine if it works for you, but at the same time, like, I was just looking through your work and it's beautiful. And you can only do that work because you're not focusing on one particular thing. And I'm constantly thinking to myself, I wish that I was out on street photographing people doing the kind of things that you're doing. I was, I'm going to an artist's studio in a couple of days' time to do a shoot there, and that kind of thing was really interesting to me. Not just doing the stuff in the studio, because I'm, Dwayne's clearly sensed that I'm on a bit of a mission. I am. I'm, I'm 41, and like, I'm trying to do this on like fast mode, because I'm, I want to speed run this shit, and I want to, I keep trying different things and trying different things out. And this kind of question of, do you shoot for free? Yeah, all the fucking time. It's, if I don't have a booking, then I'm getting someone to come into the studio to do a shoot, constantly trying things out, constantly doing new stuff. You've got to do it for your business because you've got to be putting stuff on social media, but at the same time, you've got to do it for your own work. Creativity doesn't happen by sitting behind a computer watching other people do it. It only happens when you're in the studio. I think that's so important. I mean, that's one of the major changes in my work that's happened, is having my space. Before, I was sharing a studio space with other people, so I really could only book 10 slots per month. So I was trying to maximize those 10 slots for paid slots. Of course, I was doing free shoots, but I was wanting those 10 shots. But now I've got 30 days of a month. I'm not shooting for 30 days of a month, so I better be getting in the studio and trying things out with different people for free. Whether that's somebody like Dwayne said who's just lost a job, or whether that's somebody that you've approached on Instagram. I do find it quite interesting how I get messages on Instagram saying, I've seen your work, I love your work, it's absolutely fantastic, would you like to do a collab? And I'm like, yeah, go to my booking page and we'll do a collab via money.
A paid collab.
Yeah, I need some cash for that collab. And Instagram's a little bit like that though, right?
Yeah.
But if someone hits me up and I think they've got a really interesting look, then I'll say, sure, let's do a shoot. I mean, what's interesting is I often do a call out for models and people, actors or whatever, to come in and do a shoot. And I got a message from someone, this must have been about 3-4 months ago, and I saw photographs of her and I was like, she's lovely, she's really beautiful, probably looks great in photographs, but all of the way that she presents herself is hyper glamorous. Like very, very made up, very, very sort of put together. And that's not really how I shoot. And I didn't really want to do a kind of like a glamour kind of shoot. So I was like, no, except I slid down her Instagram to like 3 years ago. And it was a photograph of her that was a selfie where she didn't have any makeup on, hadn't done her hair. She was just sat outside in the sun during one of the lockdowns. And she had amazing freckles. And I was like, if you can come to the studio without any makeup, then we can do a shoot. And she did. And I use all of those images all the time in all of my promotions. It's I don't know if you've clicked back on my Instagram, but there's a photograph of she's dead straight on. She's got very, very straight dark hair. She's wearing like a black top, and there's this kind of like quite dynamic lighting. And she's got lip fillers. She's very made up, but she does look amazing. She's got very, very interesting face as well. And that was like quite a significant shoot. That was, I don't know how you feel about this, but I see shoots in my past as being like, okay, that's a turning point. That's a turning point. Oh, I shot that photograph then. That made my practice look like this. Oh, I realized how to get that effect by doing that bit of editing. That's changed something here.
Was the name Miss Chanel, was it?
Chanel, yeah.
Yeah, was it this one
Yeah.
here?
Yeah, that's her, but it's not that particular photograph.
Right.
It's the one where she's dead straight down the center of the frame.
Okay.
So it's probably side down.
Was this one here now?
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, your lighting stuff is very inspirational for me. And I think when I mentioned about that, the light coming through the window, hitting across it, I was like, it's not similar. And I don't want to sort of be a mini me to any sort of type photographer. I do have my photographers that I do admire and do want to say, I'll take a bit of his light and I'll take a bit of that backdrop, the shadows, the contrast and whatnot, then sort of add my own sort of sprinkle of magic to it. And since I do shoot actors, I do like to shoot cinematic portraits. I do get a lot of grief from casting directors, like saying that doesn't work. I said, well, it actually does work. People have got work from them. And they're like, it doesn't work. All right, fair enough. If you don't want to use their photographs, fine, go for it. But it's tried and tested, and thankfully it does work. So
that is a really interesting. I think that's what makes the people here in this room different to like a lot of other photographers, is that we want to do what we want to do. And I think that's very specific to like creative focused photographers versus technical focused photographers. And I do the same thing. Like if there's an event that I want that people ask me for, but I don't want to do it, I'll price it out. Like if you really want me enough, you'll pay me. And if not, but it's also for me, like I know it's going to be more stress than creative enjoyment. Like I'm not going to enjoy this event. It's going to be just using the technical side of my skills rather than the creative side of the skills. And I only really enjoy the creative side. So you're hiring me to use my skills, but you're not really satisfying the part of my skills. I kind of look at it like this, like my rate is $1,000, but if you're asking me to do something I want to do, I'll give you a $500 discount because I'm getting $500 of enjoyment out of that session. But if you're not going to give me that $500 of enjoyment out of the session, you're not going to give me the creative freedom, then it's the full $1,000. That's how much it costs for me to do a job that's fully technical. And like you said, stressful. Like it's a lot of technicality. And I think that doesn't come easy to us. And I think that's why it's going to cost more,
Where does new business come from? Is it word of mouth? Does it come from social media? How do you find it, Tom? Like where is it coming for you?
Or
is it hard to say?
It's hard to say. I mean, I do ask my clients when they come in, like, where do they find me? I think people do find me on Instagram or on social media, LinkedIn and stuff like that. I think that what tends to happen is that I will get a flurry of inquiries from people after I've done a shoot with somebody. If I do a shoot with somebody on LinkedIn, if I do a shoot with somebody who's a professional and they post their photographs on LinkedIn, and I get a flurry of inquiries after that. And those people are professionals as well, and they tend to be more serious about it. So they tend to be comfortable with the price. If I post something on Instagram, then the people that approach me on Instagram don't tend to be shopping necessarily. So they're not really thinking about it from a financial perspective. They just think I'm somebody who takes photographs of people. So they want to work for free. I think most of my work, like I look at my analytics and it's very difficult to understand them because they don't say the same things as other parts of my analytics. So it's either through, like Google, like organic Google search or Facebook.
You're right. Your website does really well on the Google searches. I think page 3, just headshots London. I think it's hitting page 3. I
need to get that up to page 1. That's my task over the next sort of 6 months, is to get it consistently up onto page 1.
What platform is your site built on?
Squarespace.
So Squarespace is very easy, right, to kind of finesse the SEO stuff, and but it takes a while, and that's something that I've constantly am trying to crack for each photographer, and for the most part I do pretty good. we do pretty good. But yeah, it's that's just one angle, right?
Yeah. I just got to get a lot more backlinks now.
That's and that's hard for a photographer to get that. And for us, I've got lots of photographers that'll backlink, and that's helpful to us. But yeah, for each photographer, it's a little trickier. A little trickier. Something that we put on our site that's been surprisingly helpful is I have just a page that has good SEO kind of components to it on the back end of it, is just a page that, so anyone that's interested in headshot, I ask them questions about who they are, what do they want to use it for, what are they thinking about from the style and approach. All of those questions that I ask them are actually good SEO kind of little keywords that are on the front end of the page. And it's I'll get maybe 3 of those inquiries a week. And if they've gone to the trouble of putting down that information, I also know they're serious. I used to just get an email saying, hey, I need some LinkedIn headshots. And now and then I've got to either email them, call them, and that's all good. But having that one page is a little bit of a differentiator. And they can, and then sometimes they can link from that page and then just buy the session. But I'm getting all of this information first. It's been helpful. And I have 2 pages, one for just headshots and one for kind of corporate professional branding, which we're getting more people looking for. And that's maybe more like, Tom, that would be more your thing, as opposed like someone that like try to get 30 headshots. They want them to be the same. But someone to come into you and want to do a kind of creative professional branding, you're going to do the same thing, but they're not an actor. They might be an entrepreneur, or they might be a business person, they might be a life coach, business coach. And that could be an interesting page to build with that type of SEO kind of content on the back and front end. Yeah, maybe something to think about. Right.
Really nice to have conversations with everybody about SEO. I mean, it's one of those things that we've got to keep constantly working at, right?
Yeah, and maybe that would be a fun topic to kind of, and that's kind of where I wanted to do today's as an experiment, and to sort of see how the conversations roll, how long it takes, how does it work with recording it, is there advantages in that? But I'd like to find these more specific things that we can talk about. And there's a company I do a lot of work for here in town called SEO Plus, and that's all they do. Like they do specifically SEO, but then they find different ways of increasing SEO, they blog posts, and so I might be able to talk to the owner, Brock. He's just a young guy. He's his early 30s. They're really busy, and he could come in and perhaps talk to anybody who is interested in about some ways that each photographer can just increase their SEO 10% or more, right? Like small things actually make big differences. I'm gonna that's a good idea.
Feel about the market that they are in?
Yeah, like, super good question. Maud,
because
like you're in this super busy part of the world, Brooklyn, New York. How's the market? What's your feeling of it?
I think it probably ties into your previous question, where do I get business from? I think the most overwhelming thing about being in New York City is just how many photographers there are. It's so overwhelming. Like everywhere I go, there's someone taking photos, and there's someone with a huge Instagram followers, and there's someone who's pulling in 10 clients a week. And I'm like, how am I going to make business in a city with so many photographers? I don't know what the statistics is, but it's pretty overwhelming. And then I look back at the last 9 years of being in New York City, and I'm like, I've got pretty consistent work, and despite constantly thinking that I'm not doing very well, and I think you have to just focus on your group of people. And I think most of my work come from referrals, and like Tom said, a lot of Instagram is just people who don't really understand the commercial side of photography, because Instagram is just it's fodder, it's just a lot of stuff in your face, and no one actually gets to see the other side of it. Like if you pulled away the canvas and saw those messy strings behind it, like no one gets to see that. So I think Instagram for me is just a constant struggle of trying to educate people of like photos aren't free, like they take work. But I think what Instagram has helped me with is just like creating an awareness. Like I've met a lot of friends on Instagram, and they now know that I do headshots. So if they have a friend, last night I got a call from a guy who's, I think, an accountant, and he's like, "Oh, I know your friend Ariel, and she told me you do headshots." And I'm like, "Oh, great. I'll call you back tomorrow and we can talk about it." So just things like this, like people who I know, and Instagram has helped me expand that friends group. And I think being a photographer is sometimes intimidating for people, but also sometimes strikes up conversations. And somebody gave me bad advice a while ago. And that was like, don't network with other photographers because, they're just trying to do the same thing you're doing. And I think that's really wrong, because I think I've got so much work recently from other photographers. Like I have a good friend of mine. She's a wonderful documentary photographer that does a lot of weddings and family. And she recently had a kid, same time that my wife and I had a kid. And now she hasn't been working for a while, and all her gigs she's been sending to me. And I'm like unbelievably thankful, because she's helped me out of a lot of evictions. Like end of the month she'll send me a job and I'll be like, yeah, I can pay my rent. And I'm so thankful for that. But I never would have built that establishment unless she reached out and was like, what camera are you using? Or I'm having this problem with my lens, do you think you can help me? And those kinds of relationships are really powerful, because they create a network, and networking community is so important, especially with our constant imposter syndrome and thinking your work is terrible. And she's just so sweet and constantly tells me our work is good, and just like, oh, okay, my work is okay, I'm all right, I should still be a photographer. But also just meeting other people, like you meet other creatives or photographers that do newborn photography, and whenever someone reaches out to them to do a headshot, they're like, I don't do headshots, but reach out to Mod. Or even headshot photographers that, this isn't a job that I want to do, but maybe this would interest you, and it's the end of the month and I don't have any work, and I'm like, I wouldn't usually do it, but I need the money, so I'll take it. And things like this. And I think that's a really important thing. And now I've forgotten what your original question was. Oh, the market. So yeah, I think it is really overwhelming in New York City. But I think it's also wonderful that there's so many other photographers doing what you're doing. And I think you have to, like, with many times we get overwhelmed in life, is try not to look at the big picture. Like try not to look at how many millions of people there are in New York and how many millions of photographers there are, but focus just on the people that you know in New York City, the people that you know in your market, and try and focus on the people that you want to work with. And just try and narrow your vision, which is the opposite of what you should be usually doing. But I think just try and take it one step at a time. Like try and just be like, I need my next client, where's that going to come from? And try not to think about all the other people that also want that one client that you're trying to get. And I think that's all I can do as a person in such a huge city.
I think that's well said. And it's so easy for us to look at what other people are doing on social media, right? But no one knows how hard it was for them to get that one image that they've presented so nicely. And focus on the network of folks that you already have and expand from there. But yeah, keep the focus a bit more narrowed. I think that's wise. Otherwise, it can be pretty daunting.
Yeah.
How about you, Sean? Like Stockholm, what's the market like there?
Stockholm's quite a small city. There is some very inspirational portrait photographers. There's a few good headshot photographers, but it's not an issue per se, but it's portraits photographers and headshot photographers. For me, I think we've discussed this before. I feel like there's a difference between the style. Okay, it's a head inside a frame, shoulders, head, but one conveys a different message to the other. So there's some people that are saying that the headshot photographers, and when the people go to them, they're not really happy because it's not what they're looking for. But with since being on Headshots Matter, I have noticed I am getting a lot of people like Thomas, like whereabouts you hear me from, and it is Google searches, and that's never happened before. So to have that come to me via this is fantastic. I've had 4 or 5 LinkedIn portraits now. Again, they are more portraits than headshots, and they're very well lit, white backgrounds generally. So for me, it's improving on. It's the opposite of what I do, and I also enjoy doing it. But the market is it seems to be quite fluid. I mean, I enjoy what I do, and there doesn't seem to be much. It's not Bowman Trump, but there's a lot of competition. But it's a case of people have been with, come back to me time and time again. So a lot of it is word of mouth. It is actors, friends seeing their portraits that I'm taking of them. So it seems to be quite healthy for me at the moment. During the COVID time, it just bucketed, it just dived. There was just no one coming in at all. It was people weren't, the people were scared to leave the living rooms. So, but the market is quite healthy. I'm still doing what I like to do. I am expanding because I obviously want to pay rent. So, wedding season's coming up. That's quite a good way to pay rent. And I now enjoy wedding photography. It's something I thought I would never say that I enjoy doing. So it's good.
One of the things that I think is worth saying is that we tend to think that people are coming to us because of the work we shoot or the work that we've shot for someone else, and maybe what someone has said, how the shot went well. But ultimately, it comes down to how we treat people. And I think, Sean, I think that the folks that come your way really have enjoyed the experience with you.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the end result, but they've enjoyed you as a person. And I think same with you, Maud, and same thing with you, Tom, and same thing with you, Mike, is I think good folks gravitate to good folks. And when we treat them well, obviously we all have to be at a certain level, but lots of people are at a certain level. But if you can be kind and treat people well and let them have a good experience and be collaborative in the process with them, I think that they dig that. Right.
Yeah.
Very much so.
We've kind of ran over a little bit of an hour. I don't know if you guys have a little more time, or if we what we like to kind of, or what I like to kind of curate, highlight, champion are photographers that are doing it the way they want to do it. They do it, they're, again, creative independence, and that, so headshots, they're that. But are they just that? I think they can tell a little more story if they share a bit more. And ultimately, that's what it's about. It's about telling a story and having a photograph help that individual tell their story and maybe get a job as an actor or a job in a corporate world. So I felt quite good to be able to sort of kind of quieten them down on that, and just to say, that's not what we're all about. And to that, my compliments to what you guys do. It's just that you're doing it your way, and that's pretty damn cool.
I mean, I must admit, I'm amazed by everyone's work that I'm seeing in Headshot Matters. I think for me, since being a part of this group, there's a lot of people that I do follow, and I do admire their work. And do I get inspiration from their work? Absolutely. And that's sort of what can inspire you if you do get in a bit of a creative rut. I've been in creative ruts. It's not nice. You feel it's like, I'm just going to sell my camera for $20, whatever it is, and just have done with it. But to see work like Mike's, Mod's, and Tom's, it does keep you going. It is that sort of mental pat on the back to saying, okay, well, what I'm doing is worthy of being. I mean, it's Instagram, but at the end of the day, what you want to do as a photographer is be paid for what you do. I mean, I don't see what I do as a job. I actually love what I do. I mean, I was a graphic designer in London for 14 years with the BBC, then Thomson Reuters, and I just had no get up and go. It just got up and gone after so many times. But now with photography, it's okay, a bit of a rut, have a quick look through, see what there is, go to the magazine store, see what's on there, and take some inspiration from that. It's hard to get out of a rut. It's not easy, but when you do have people like yourselves to get inspiration from, and that bit of a kick up the arse, basically, it feels good. It feels good to do what I do. So it's really good. It's a good community. It's a very helpful community.
I think this is really one of the questions one of the things about this I was going to say is that I think that if I just shot really simple corporates portrait or headshot.
You'd want to do
photograph.
something different.
Well, I would probably make more money.
Well, but maybe, right? Right.
You know, I'd get all of those quotes that I'm talking about that I'm not getting. But it's not interesting for me. Like, you know, I think like all of us, we're doing this because it's something that we enjoy doing and gets us out of bed in the morning. But you know, to the initial question that Dwayne posed about, like, is this a headshot? I think I was thinking about the idea of a convention, right? Now, how is a convention produced? Well, a convention is produced either through like an authority figure or an institution, a kind of from the top down. You know, this is the rules and the regulations. This is how you are meant to be doing something in whatever field it is. Or it's produced imminently in the societies and the communities, and that it kind of just rises to the top, and that's the kind of convention through kind of productions of norms and so forth. Now, with a headshot, it's sort of somewhere in between those two things, because some people in certain markets have positioned themselves as authorities on the headshot. You know, I'm thinking in London specifically, I don't know if any of you are aware of this, the APHP, the Association of Professional Headshot Photographers. Now, that's essentially just a small handful of headshot photographers who specialize in actors' headshots in a particular style. And what they do is they say, this is what you should be shooting. And they go to all these drama schools and they say, guys, these are the kind of photographs that you should be presenting as a headshot. And then all the casting directors and them, they're all friends, and they're saying to each other, this is how you should be shot. And you know, there is some range within that kind of boundary, but it's all fairly standard. And of course, you know, if you're an actor and you're putting your headshot on Spotlight or whatever, yeah, it does need to do certain things. It has to have certain functions. You know, you can't do a headshot that's the back of someone's head. You can't think that you're being like, oh, crazy, like breaking conventions by shooting their hands. No, you know, you've got to do some certain things. But I think that there's absolutely room to play in there. And I think that really what we're looking at now is there are certainly within the actors market, so many actors coming out these days with just showing very, very similar headshots. They're well lit. They're nicely, there's like tonally across the page. They're entirely, you know, they're very similar. It's front on, a little bit of a smile. There's kind of some attitude. And basically what they've done is they've gone to one of these headshot photographers and sat in front of their lights, which are constantly set up, probably cemented into the ground at certain angles. And they've sat in exactly the same position as the 300 people that have come previously to them that month. And they've got those same photographs, right? Yeah. And I'm like, that sounds like a job. That sounds like the thing that Sean couldn't get out of bed for, you know, in the morning. And that I've never had one of those. I couldn't do that. So I'm like, well, you know, pay me to do the thing that I do, or go to that guy who's going to do it for 250 quid for 5 photographs. Exactly. And you can get a photograph. But this is the important thing. You're throwing that £250 away because there are 300 other people who look very, very similar to you, who are going to have a photograph very, very similar to you. And this is how casting directors look through photographs.
Yeah. It's shockingly fast.
And they're that big.
Yeah.
So how the hell, unless you are incredibly unique or you're absolutely the epitome of your casting type, how the hell are you going to stop that scroll?
Yeah.
It's all about marketing, right? We are the front line of actors, or probably mostly actors, but sometimes, you know, creative people's marketing. And so our job is to stop that, is to stop the scroll. And unless they are fucking crazy looking, on us.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, it's a case I had a casting director contact me, and she says, your headshots are too dark. I was like, excuse me? I said, they're too dark. You can't see them. I was like, have you got the computer turned on for a kickoff? No, it's ridiculous. And she sort of said, well, you know, it's a case of, and I sort of said to her, and I've only said this to once because she sort of pushed the buttons that made me say it. I didn't want to say it, but she made me go there. But she was like, they're too dark. And I said, well, listen, if your photographers can get your actors jobs in Hollywood, then you can come back and talk to me about shooting lighter pictures. I shoot the way I like to shoot. My work gets actors' work. And it's like Thomas says, you know, it is a case of the like this here. I saw some on YouTube, and there was like two casting directors and Warner Brothers, and it was, and they were like, talking about the kids' weekends. They weren't even looking at it for the most part.
Yeah.
And again, not unless you're total badass crazy looking, it's that they're not going to stop and have their attention caught. You know, one of the reasons why I do shoot my portraits, actors' portraits, landscape, it was a tip that I got from Peter Hurley. You know, it's basically like a screen grab from a movie clip, you know, off to one side, you know, bit of an angle, and it works. You know, that my aspect of shooting with one light is there's only one light in the sky, and that's the sun. So, you know, people don't walk around with reflectors with no shadows. Your face just looks flat as a pancake. People have dimensions to the face, and I want to show that. I refuse to be told how to shoot the way I shoot. Why should I? Because then I'm just going to be another one of these photographers that shoots blur. And I don't want to be a blur photographer. You know, if it causes controversy, then so what?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad that you got that.
And to add to the problem, is
Really?
this also the same type of editing done to every picture? Because, well, I understand the corporate cleaning, and but it's the same Gaussian blur. It's the same frequency separation. It's the same anything, everything. And I do it. I do frequency separation. I do almost the same thing, but I don't want you to see it. But it's seen that it's the same effect applied to every picture.
Yeah.
And the thing is, sometimes I've heard the sentence. I think Maud said it. Technical photographers is it really that? I'm not sure, because we are more expert in our technique than someone who's just going to take the same picture 300 times a day. And if you don't trust what Sean does, well, it is dark, but it is a mood. I mean, if I want to hire an actor who just lost his son to a car accident, okay, the lighting will be this. So these blue eyes are really reflected in that scene. So yeah, of course I'm gonna hire her for that scene.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to buy a nose and a set of lips to feel the scene. It's really in that lighting. Is she good? Is she a great actor? That's the question. And even though, well, we said Dwayne and me, we're maybe a bit more transactional, but the element of trust is there also. The type of lighting for the trust matters.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of trust that goes both ways, not just me as a photographer. You know, the trust goes both ways. You know, they have to trust me to be able to get them work from what I produce, and vice versa. You know, if they want to trust me, I have to trust them that they can actually do what I ask them to do, and vice versa. So
yeah, and also for the client. Well, if you're a business owner yourself and you sell pencils, do I trust you to make good pencils? The thing is, the headshot makes it true or false. And part of my job also, if you're a bad investor or something, come of the earth, you'd say, my job is to lie good enough that you're the most trustworthy guy from the picture. And this comes with lighting. Lighting will the equipment, the room, the backdrop, everything matters. So do I show more just the head or a bit more? It all matters, because if the tie is not straight, it means something. If the tie is straight, it means something. The color of the tie, even in my studio, I have 60 ties, just to make sure it's the right color. But everything matters. All of that is techniques that we need to make sure the headshot is perfect for the outcome. So yeah.
And sometimes imperfection is the perfection, right?
Yeah,
It
that's
depends.
perfectly put.
Yeah. I think as a photographer, I think we all, if we were to shoot something that is very personal to us, we're gonna shoot with mood. We're gonna think that there's one sun in the sky. We're gonna shoot with depth, and we're not gonna get rid of the wrinkles. We're gonna love them and enjoy them and and show them in our photos. That's what I think most of us love.
Yeah.
Anyway,
going back to what you. Okay, sorry.
Go ahead, Mon.
Do we have some more time?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Going back to what you said, Tom, about convention, I think this is an interesting thing and something I've been thinking about recently of how it's changing. And maybe Dwayne, you can give some insight because I think you've seen the transition of how the industry has changed. But I think it is definitely, when I work with younger actors who are in school, they usually want something that's more conventional because usually they've been told what they want. And usually with older actors or more, they usually got to that life where they don't want to be told how they want to look anymore, and they want to go for something more creative. But I think things are changing, and I think that might be a positive side to Instagram, that people are seeing a more diversified look of portraits and headshots, and they're getting to see more variety. And no one, we're not left with those typical Stella Adler actor printouts that were going around in the 90s and everyone only saw those. Like people, and young people especially in college, are getting to see more diversity and more creativity, and I think that's definitely something that's changed the industry. But I think as a society as a whole, we've become more individualized. I think we're wanting to be ourselves, and especially in colleges nowadays, there is this more energy of like, I want to look different from the next person. I think that's definitely helping our style. But I'd love to hear, like, from all of you, where do you see that changing? Is it something that we have to make more of an effort to tell the client what they want? Or is it something that has to come from the client? Like, what is this something that we, together, all of us, we're going to make a change? Like, do we need to start, putting up big billboards and like changing the industry? Or is it something that's just happening organically because society is changing and what people want and convention?
Yeah, like I do have conversations with my clients, especially the younger acting clients, about their own marketing presence. Now, probably like me, you've all spent a lot of time on YouTube trying to understand how Instagram works or how marketing works, how, et cetera, right? Acting is a business. If you're an actor, you run a business, you are the product that you sell. And so you have to think about your headshots and other ways of presenting yourself online as a form of marketing. So if you're not thinking like that, you're just posting like some nice cute photographs of puppies on Instagram, then you're missing a trick, right? Instagram is just as important as your spotlight page for your marketing. There are casting directors and people who are writing, people who are, look, these people who are casting directors and other people who work in the industry, they're just people. They've got Instagram accounts. They're sitting there scrolling through like everybody else. They're going to check you out on your Instagram. And if your Instagram is just basically 3 photographs of cats and you on a walk somewhere, what the hell are you doing? Like, how do I know what this person is doing? The reason that I post nearly every day of the week is because I want people to come and go, okay, he's active, he's doing something, he's got work, he's doing that. Exactly. If I'm taking photographs of an actor, I'm saying to them, you're not buying 5 photographs to put on your spotlight portfolio and that's it. You need a whole portfolio of images because you want to be posting regularly interesting photographs of yourself, not just headshots, because it's so vital for you to do that. I think that's why work like the cinematic portrait that you were talking about, Sean, or like, some of your work mod where you're outside, there's, stuff that is super, super important for actors because they've got to be seen to be being active. And I think that a lot of people don't recognize that. They get told you need some headshots for your spotlight profile, and they think 5 images is what I need because that's how many people have on their spotlight profile. Yeah, sure, but then you're going to come back in 6 months' time to book me again or another photographer. You're going to pay a sitting fee, the session fee, and you're going to be getting another 5 images because you're going to want some more. Whereas the reason I do a massive long session is because I want to make sure that they're actually coming away with a massive portfolio of images that they're set for 2 years minimum, so they can constantly be updating their front page image. They're constantly updating what's being seen because it's an attention economy at the end of the day, and you've got to play that game.
Absolutely.
Unless you don't have to. If you don't have to play that game, then you don't need headshots.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I think what one of the advice, the sort of the biggest advice I give for actors over here, as you said, Tom, that they do have pictures of cats or them in Tenerife with a pint of beer in their hand. It doesn't look so good for any type of, potential job search or employer or casting director. So when they do come here, I go snooping on their Instagram to see what they've got, and when they do come out, I say, listen, you've got to set up yourself an actor's page, so it's completely separate. Have your headshots, have your behind the scenes stuff, take pictures of sitting down in makeup and stuff like that, and just put that on your CV as well. Sean Luthway actor, so they can go and look for that rather than pictures in Tenerife with a pint of beer in your hand. And it's a case of when I do see their spotlight and they do have these pictures when they're in Tenerife, and say, listen, before you go, you have to get rid of these off your spotlight. I don't want to see, you're not putting my stuff on there with that, because that just makes me, it looks fucking terrible. So it's a case of, get rid of that. You're not leaving the house till you get rid of this off your spotlight or stage pool, whatever it is. And they do it. It's only doing them a favor by having professional headshots. It does make them stand out from the white backgrounds, the no shadows, the flat as a pancake. So if you have like 10 pictures that look at a glimpse similar, some are men, some are women, but they look similar, how you expect to stand out? So for having them as dark as they are and having them as much dimension in the face, for me, is what makes them stand out. Even if they're just even if they're just doing extra work behind the scenes, they stand out. People do get headhunted for the work. So what I'm doing is clearly working. So I'm quite happy with how I'm shooting that. Until I'm proven wrong, I'm going to keep on shooting the way I'm shooting.
What I think would be super cool, if there was some way for an actor to have both Sean and Tom in the same city, same studio, but they're coming and getting both of your perspectives of them. Like, on the note of having that variety, that would be really, really cool. I don't know how we make that happen, but it would sure be fun.
Sean is British, right? You're Scottish, aren't you?
Scottish Irish, born in Germany.
Okay, you're from everywhere.
Yeah, my dad was in the army, so.
I mean, actually, this brings me to a point that I maybe wasn't going to raise, but maybe might be an interesting point, is that actually then I'm starting a new business, which is photography education. So it's not just headshots, not just portraits, but actually so I teach at university. And one of the great things about teaching at university or being at university is that you get a lot of time to experiment. You get, a whole year, 2 years, 3 years sometimes to experiment, play around. You've got access to studios, you've got access to tutors and technicians. You've got that, that kind of crit setup. You've got your community of other students around who are constantly kind of feeding into your work. So, but what a lot of photography educators at the moment can't offer is that exact model, right? They can't offer the studio, they can't offer the time, they can't offer that kind of more informal kind of feedback session. Now, you mentioned Peter earlier, and of course, we can joke about that, but I went through the Peter Hurley School of Headshot Photography, and found the setup where you are constantly on a call, every week you're on a call, actually quite useful. It's not how I would teach, because I think that it's a formulaic approach, and that's perfectly fine for if you want to do that. That's great. I care far more about creativity and people finding their own voice, their own sort of style, and so forth. But that question that Dwayne just asked, like, how do you get people in the same room, like us talking to actors or us talking to potential clients and saying, here's my perspective, here's how you should think about your photography, here's that's exactly what I'm thinking in terms of the education that I want to do, because it's so useful to it'd be so useful for us all to be having these kind of conversations in front of people who want to learn about photography, right?
And not just photographers, but like between the two of you, you've taught me some things about how actors would be better suited in how they present themselves, not just in the photographs, but in how they present those photographs after the fact. Like, that would be an interesting class, Tom, to offer, and bring in someone like Sean who, has a lot of experience with actors in that market. It would be quite,
yeah, absolutely.
quite
We'll
neat.
do it. We'll do it. We'll do an online class.
So I'm from a time when the only way a photographer got business is if they took their hard copy portfolio. We called it, take your book, go and see designers, art directors, creative directors in ad agencies and design studios. And you went and sit down, and typically it always took like 20 minutes, showed the stuff. And I did that back in 2000. I moved from Alberta, I moved to Ottawa, and I thought, oh, I got this great book. I was shooting all this great stuff out there. I'm going to show these art directors here. They're going to give me business. I get zero business.
Wow.
Because it was all about the relationships. And it takes time to develop that. You can't rush it. And so I think the wonderful thing about the time we're in now, there is none of that. There's nothing that's pushy. We put our stuff out on, well, a website for one thing, so we're not carrying a book around. It's there. Someone wants to look at it, they can. If they don't have to. We put a social media out there, people see it, oh, well, okay, they're interested, they might go to your website where that tells your whole story. So there's a lack of pushiness these days in marketing, but we still need to market, right?
Yeah.
So we have to find that sort of kind of sweet spot of pushing ourselves forward without pushing ourselves forward. It's a dance, but it's a,
balance and act.
I think it's fun.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I mean, what the one thing that I do tell actors to do is when they're not studying, when they're not on set, is to network. Not creepily, don't go ask people to marry you, because that's never going to work. If it does, congratulations. But it's to network like crazy in a professional way. Put your face out there, get seen by directors and producers and casting agents. And for some young actors, having headshots taken, it is a bit of a luxury for them to have done. They normally get their partners or the mother to take the photograph in the bathroom with god awful like panda eyes going on stuff, and they just look like they're convicts. And so listen, I do have a student rate, I do have a non-student rate, but at the end of the day, as soon as they start showing something that has interest, then it works for them. Just having a simple headshot, whether it's I used to shoot with strobe a lot, but I found that used to interfere with the pupils of the eyes. The eyes would always dilate like pennies, and if they've got like fantastic green eyes, these eyes get lost because the eyes have dilated. So now I'm using, is it a 60 watt? It's a Godot light, SL90, I think it is. Parabolic modifier for it. And you can, seeing the shadows on the face to get, the Rembrandt lighting, whatever it is, sort of, rather than doing the 45, I'll do like 45.3 degrees, just to get something a bit different. It does work very well, the Rembrandt lighting, but again, there's a lot of photographers that stick to that rule, as you said, Tom. They've got like the lights cemented into the ground, it just doesn't move. So to try and get something that stands out in a good way rather than a radical, I'm a rebel type way is very important. It's very important to get them to be shown in the correct light, pardon the pun, but being seen as a human and not a flat plate with no shadows is very important. It's very important.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Dwayne, thank you so much for all of your work that you've done to get this rolling.
Well, the project itself is fun for me. It's not it creates a little bit of revenue, which just sort of takes care of some things, but it's not about making money. It's about sort of the relationships and about helping others. And the money's that comes from my studio. And but this is fun. It's cool to make some friends and to feel like we're all helping each other. But now we got
your work has been helpful in showcasing the work, because when I approach someone and I tell them I'm a photographer, and okay, what have you done? Is the question. I show them both my website and yours.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And it brings like a confidence.
Yeah. Some
That
credibility.
Okay, he's doing something. He's really doing something. It's not just for pleasure. So your work has given me a reputation that I can do this, and it actually made me go further in my business. So thanks for everything, Dwayne.
Oh, my pleasure.
And actually,
super
actually,
cool.
if you search headshot photographer Stockholm, as I did to try and find yours, Sean, the headshot matters comes up first, I think, as one
It
of the
does. I
ones.
think it does. Yeah. I'm
Page
not
one
being
is all one. Pretty
vain,
good.
but yeah, it does come up. It's right up there, and it's good to see. It's really good to see. But the fact before I've done this with Headshot Matters, I had no Google hits whatsoever, zero. And it's a case of people don't really like to go into too much how they said it. So I searched on Google. So to get work like this, other than actors, is fantastic. You know, doing stuff for LinkedIn portraits is really good, and that's how it sort of started off with LinkedIn headshots. So so getting to from where I was then to now, you know, it's got a lot to do with you, Dwayne. It really has, you know. So
Brilliant.
and I think everyone else
Yeah.
here will agree in that. Thank you for everything that you've done. It's incredible.
Yeah, right on.
Incredible
Yeah,
project.
it's having someone like believe in you enough to like go, you know, keep going, you're doing a good job, you know.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you're up to something. So
It's
great.
important, and in our business there isn't going to be that person, because we're always in somewhat of a adversarial, except for you, Mod. You've got some great photographer friends. You know, that hasn't always happened for me, but usually photographers are a little bit adversarial, a bit protective, so we're not going to get championing from them, and our clients will a little bit. So if, you know, if the project can be helpful on that level, terrific. It's helpful for everyone. That's good. I like that. Yeah. So we're going to keep going. And then Tom, you know, tell us more when you know more, and it kind of comes together with the education stuff and some of the other things that you and I spoke about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to carry on these kind of conversations. It's nice to have communities of people around the world.
Yeah. Now that I've done this one with, you know, a handful of people, it might be like once a week or once every 2 weeks. Definitely no, I don't want to wait too long on them. I like I think it's good for all of us. I think we all can learn little bits from each other. All right, lads, thank you for this. It's been great. Have a good rest of your afternoon, Maud and Mike and Sean and Tom. You guys are in the evening now, right?
Yeah, it is 10 to 8.
Oh, good. Time to take the dogs for a walk.
The last walk, thankfully. So all three of them.
And you have 3 beagles of your own, and you
look after 2 during the days. So I had no participation at all today, so that was actually quite good to get some time off from that. So went and shot some dentists instead.
Very nice.
Good fun. Good fun.
All right, okay, lads. Thank you very much.
All right.
We'll chat to you more soon on sort of just text messaging and whatever, and we'll do another one of these soon.
Perfect.
Okay. All right.
I followed everybody on Instagram, by the way.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. All right.